We're rolling. All right, welcome to episode 129 of Convos on the Pedicab. I'm here with my friend, State Representative Briscoe Cain. Before we get started, we got to give a big shout out to our sponsors. Have you been leaving your house outside again? Texas weather can wreak havoc on your home, especially your roof. And if you haven't had it inspected lately, chances are that outside elements could be making their way inside your home. Trust Balcones Roofing and Remodeling to perform a thorough roof inspection and offer long-lasting solutions. They are the only 5-star rated roofer in Austin who specialize in installing the impact-resistant F-Wave Revia and back all roof replacements with a $20,000 guarantee. To schedule a roof inspection, call 512-937-8805 or visit balconesroofsaustin.com.
All right, let's hear for Balcones Roofing.
Here for Balcones Roofing, give it up to Carl Larson. He is the owner and CEO. We have one more sponsor, 512 Boutique Events. Services all catering and staffing needs to any event in Austin and the surrounding areas, anything from weddings to corporate events to festivals. They are even equipped to provide bar services. Visit their website today at 512boutiqueevents.com for contact information. Calendar fills up quickly, so be sure to get your event booked today. All right.
512boutiqueevents.com.
Yes. They are a great catering company. They are awesome. My friend Becky actually runs the company. She's awesome.
Excellent.
Becky and Carl.
Becky and Carl, 512 Boutique Events.
And also Balcones Roofs.
It's pretty excellent.
They are excellent people. Supporting a small business with no return because they love what I'm doing.
Good for them. I appreciate that.
There's nothing more American than that, Briscoe. And there's nothing less American than the Restrict Act that they are trying to rush through Congress.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Patriot Act 2.0. Yeah.
Yes. What do you know about that?
I just think it's really weird they call it the Restrict Act.
Well,
like Restrict Freedom Act, maybe.
Exactly. They're not restricting TikTok. They are restricting you.
Yeah, Spy on Americans Act.
Yeah, it gives the president, the Secretary of Commerce, as well as various intelligence agencies unilateral power to determine what constitute a hostile foreign website, and they can ban that for any arbitrary reason whatsoever. So, let's say you get deplatformed off of YouTube. They could label Rumble terrorism, and now you're basically choking people off from society and not allowing differing views to express themselves. That's just one of many egregious violations.
I wish we could act like we're surprised that the government would be doing this, but I think Americans are kind of getting used to their government being hostile to dissenting opinions.
Yeah, we're really these past 3 years have really kind of served as a test to the foundational principles of America. We are really going to see what this country is made of, because this country was designed for stuff like this to happen as a backstop, and we're going to see how effective this backstop really is.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, the idea was we understood things were going to happen, but we were going to have things get in the way of it, whether it be the courts or the legislature, and now we just kind of have chaos and no one's checking each other.
Sort of. I mean, the state of Texas has done a pretty mediocre job of kind of checking these abuses that have been levied upon us.
Yeah. Some of it's just there's so much, right? And the Attorney General's office is trying to go after everything, and the ledge does it. But it's this whack-a-mole thing, and there's only so many resources, and there's only so many lawyers that can fight it, and they're just bigger than us. But I'm glad other states are also joining in to push back on the encroachment of the federal government and on our civil liberties.
They did a really good job pushing back against the juice mandates.
The juice.
Yeah, the juice.
The juice. That's the new word for the shop.
We're gonna call it juice. Yeah, just because, like I said, this is on YouTube and we don't want to get flagged.
Oh.
Yeah, they're forcing you to drink juice without your permission, and the states did a pretty good job of pushing back on that, which is good, because nobody should be forced to drink juice, whether it's apple juice or orange juice or pineapple juice or cranberry juice.
The way I view that one is like a liberty issue. Let's pretend for a moment that the juice made you live forever. And made you wealthy. Should the government then be able to force you to have it?
Well, no, but
I think the answer is no. So regardless of what it's for, they shouldn't be able to force us
Briscoe,
to do it.
fun fact, if everybody's wealthy, then nobody is wealthy. Because wealth is
but you'd have to take
scaling.
the juice.
You'd have to take the juice.
Yeah, if you took the juice and it did it, right? It's the hypo.
Well,
Regardless of the health consequences, let's say it was healthy and it made you live forever. Should the government be able to do it? And I think the answer is no. You can't force me to do that, regardless of whether the health consequences are, et cetera.
You shouldn't force anybody to do any kind of invasive medical procedure. And you definitely shouldn't have to show a QR code to prove that, because that opens up a very slippery slope, and it's very dangerous.
The juice passports?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, they want to know if you're healthy, so you have to show digital identification to know that you're drinking orange juice or pineapple juice.
I feel like
cranberry
people are going
juice.
to take a segment of this on YouTube and think we're literally talking about juice passports, but whatever, they can believe what they want.
Yeah, that is kind of funny. People are wild when it comes to that.
Yes.
But anyway, the state has done a pretty good job. They haven't. Have they? How is the legislation going to ban these mandates at the state level? How has that been going?
I think some have been heard and some are maybe stuck in committee. I'm not really fully tracking it, man.
What do you think your prognosis is on that issue being solved formally, finally, like putting finality to this issue?
I think the people are going to have to speak up. I mean, I've got a bill on the meningitis juice, and but it's actually already enjoined. It's been held unconstitutional. So whether or not we move the bill, they're not supposed to enforce it. There's a lot of problems. So eventually, maybe the courts could work it out. But it'd be nice to see the legislature finally put an end to it.
Yeah, I'm not very confident in them. Unfortunately, we have a lot of it's bad on both ends, right? Like, Democrats pretend to be progressive and care about working people, and all they care about are corporate donors. And then Republicans pretend to be really conservative and liberty-oriented, but all they care about are corporate donors as well. And it's very difficult to find representatives that actually do what they campaign on doing. And you just need, like, constant pressure to kind of make them to make them do the right thing.
I'm not sure all Republicans pretend to care about
I
liberty.
didn't say all, I said some.
Oh, there you go.
You're one of the good ones.
I don't even know if
some
some even understand the principle of liberty or even understand the difference in liberty and freedom or these concepts. So,
well, yeah, you have a lot of Republicans and Democrats. They go to the same conferences, they go to the same country clubs, they speak at the same events, and it's a big stage. And it was fine when people were comfortable when we didn't have 10% year-over-year inflation, which don't let the CPI numbers fool you. That's kind of what it's boiling down to. People ignored a lot of these issues a lot more when we were living comfortably, but our standard of living is being threatened, especially with de-dollarization, the strengthening of the BRICS countries, the fact that we had our dollar was the global reserve currency, and we were holding it up by nothing other than force, and we see firsthand that we're not as scary as people thought we were, and because you're holding something up by force and not by anything that has tangible value, you're going to see a lot of crazy stuff that could potentially come down the pipe for us.
yeah, look, I mean, if anything replaces the U.S. dollar, I don't want to think about it.
What do you think will happen?
Just if another currency does at the end, we're screwed.
Are you?
You don't think so?
I mean, do you own any Bitcoin?
Well, yes, or digital currency, but I'm talking about other issues.
I think the majority of people are going to get screwed if the U.S. dollar no longer becomes a reserve currency, because most people's financial literacy is very problematic, the lack of financial literacy that we have right now. And a lot of people don't understand basic economics, and they have blind trust in the U.S. dollar and think that their standard of living is based on wage increases and printing money and having stimulus packages, and it's the government's job to provide aid to make it so that we live a comfortable lifestyle. But in actuality, it's really about, making sure that your money can last. And when you have money that's not backed by anything, and the more you print and the more programs you fund, well, the more your money gets devalued, and the poorer everybody gets, except for the people closest to the printer.
Yeah. It's all these things that, like, people like to look back, and everybody called Ron Paul crazy, and now, like, you see how right he was? Even discussing the Federal Reserve and the concepts of it, I mean, it's coming back, and he was like a prophet.
He is, and it's unfortunate that a lot of time, like, you can gauge whether or not something is the right thing to do based on how many people are laughing at you. And that's what I've kind of noticed, like, just from an investing standpoint. Like, whenever you talk about, like, I've been really big on Bitcoin this entire year throughout this whole bear market, and everyone would just be laughing at me and, like, sneering at me and talking shit to me, and just, I'd be giving rides and telling people I offer discounts on Bitcoin, and they'd be like, isn't that like 80% down, bro? Why would you want to buy that? And now when people were saying that Bitcoin was that's literally a bottom indicating behavior, and now Bitcoin's up close to 80% from when people were saying that. It's almost doubled. So it's just an interesting thing. It's like you could almost plan for the future by doing you can almost plan for the future by doing the opposite of what everybody's telling you to do.
I'm willing to bet on that one sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've noticed, right? It's like everybody talked about inflation going through the roof, and the money party never coming to an end in 2021, and then everything crashes, right? So imagine, like, finally deciding to get into these high-risk assets when everybody in the media is telling you to do it, and then you lose everything. All of a sudden now, like, you just created another communist. You know?
Did. That's true.
Like,
Yeah. We've got to fight back. What else, man?
well, I mean, I think that's an issue. And I think that when you see the dollar devaluing, you're going to see this have a profound effect on where we live, right? And we live in a state that does value a lot of these freedoms, which is a good thing so far. And we've done a pretty good job. They've done a pretty good job continuing to value this stuff, despite the influx of people from other areas who don't value these as much coming here, which is a testament. But ultimately, currency devaluation really affects everybody. It affects regular middle-of-the-road people. And if we're not preparing for that, then we're going to be in a world of hurt. And we have the opportunity to be the Bitcoin capital of the United States. And I feel as though we are kind of squandering that based on this anti-mining bill that they tried to put through.
Yeah, it's troubling. We have to kill that bill. It's a bad bill.
Very bad bill. I'm glad you're on board
with that. I respect the author, but I don't think it's the right way to go. Now, there is another bill, and I can't think of the name of it, but essentially it's a kind of a digital gold-backed currency for the state, if you remember this.
Yeah, that sounds like a CBDC, though.
Yeah. So the U.S. Constitution doesn't allow the states to print currency, but they can use gold and silver, and so it'd be essentially a gold-silver currency of the state, but, a way to hold it, right? Another way of transferring instead of having to carry gold bars around. There's some discussion on it. I think
but you also have to verify whether or not they even have the gold. And with Bitcoin, it's on an immutable ledger, and you can verify that based on the electricity that's produced to make the transaction. So it would make more sense to just, I don't know, like, let people pay their property taxes in Bitcoin. Let Bitcoin miners get the same tax breaks that all these woke mega corporations get to come here that are literally have the values that are the opposite of 90% of the people in this legislative body. At least that's what they campaign on.
Yeah.
You would want to give people better money to weather what, a potential worst case scenario. And you also want to have businesses and a population of people who come here that actually value your freedoms. And Bitcoin is not, it's not a company. It's actual decentralized money, right? And it's gold in the digital age. But there's a lot of Bitcoin companies. There's like on-chain capital. They give you an opportunity to cold store your Bitcoin, right? There's Riot Blockchain. They have a mining facility in Rockdale. Like they've almost revitalized that town from having that mining facility. When you bring like Bitcoin mining into Texas, right? It doesn't really mess up the environment. It gives jobs. It allows people who work in the restaurants an opportunity to get tipped and paid out in Bitcoin. You educate people more on this better asset. You allow ultimately the opportunity for people to pay their property taxes in something like this. And then when Bitcoin inevitably goes up because it has to, because of the fixed supply and because it's based on math, well then you don't have to tax people out of their house at home to fund actual social programs. You could just use a naturally occurring surplus to do that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. We're going to have to check out the other bill, though. I don't know any more about it, but we're going to have to look at it and do it. Let me know if it is as problematic as you may think.
Okay, I will look at that.
Yeah, we got to find out, man, if this is good or bad. It sounds good to me. I need to get you to read it.
I don't know if it's good. I don't know if it's good or bad. I just know that Bitcoin is just easier. It's easier to just say, okay, well, we're going to just pay our taxes in Bitcoin. We're going to start accumulating some Bitcoin. We're going to just have a little bit on our balance sheet. Like, we should be providing guidance for counties to be able to do this at a local level.
There's no reason that it's not in our treasuries.
There's no reason why it's not. We have a $26 billion surplus, and first of all, people should be getting everybody who owns a home should get that money back, right? And that I feel like that bill's kind of gone nowhere. Maybe I'm wrong. So there's that, and also even if that doesn't happen, literally just take $1 billion out of those $26 billion, and just figure out an accumulation strategy for Bitcoin. Just put 1/10 of put 1/10 of it, 1/100th of that every single week, and just dollar cost average into this for a couple of years and just see what happens.
Interesting. Now, when you say Bitcoin, you mean digital currency?
No, I mean Bitcoin. I mean Bitcoin. I don't mean any of these other nonsense cryptocurrencies that have a development board, that have CEOs that can artificially inflate or deflate their supply.
Okay.
Yeah, I only mean Bitcoin. I don't mean any of these other cryptos are a scam.
Doge is a scam.
Scam.
Ooh. All right.
I mean, it's a meme. It's like
I don't have any Doge.
It's like going to a casino.
All right.
It's like going to a casino.
Fair enough, man.
All right. I came to your office yesterday.
You did.
By accident. I was going around the
and
Capitol.
I accidentally saw you.
It was really good. It was like an act of fate that we are here.
It was. It's perfect timing because we're getting into a busy part of session. It's going to be chaotic for some, and it's a neat thing. And I'm glad you're getting to see what goes on in there. I mean, our sessions are, as you know, like are really, really short, and they're even shorter due to some of the timelines and things. It's wild to think that, essentially the 7th largest economy in the world does its business in such a short amount of time.
Well, yeah, and nothing gets done. Nothing gets done unless it helps the donors.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be a bad thing if literally nothing got done. I mean, we'd be better. There are good things to do, but if nothing at all, then we maybe keep less words on the page of the code.
I can't argue with that. I think the best government is honestly like no government or like gridlock where nothing happens.
Yeah, there's the fair point to it. In fact, today somebody was talking to me like, man, I'd like to see like a rule where you can only file this many bills, or a rule like every word or line we put into law we got to take out.
I think there should be a maximum of like 2 pages per bill.
Yeah, that's almost impossible to do technically, but I feel you.
Why?
There should be. Because of the drafting style, like if I want to literally change a word in something, the bill may be longer.
A maximum word count.
Yeah, there you go. Right on.
There should be like a maximum word count for the number for like how filing a bill works. Like with the TikTok ban, right? It's like, okay, you want to ban a hostile foreign company that's like harvesting your data. Okay, okay, we're banning one company and that's it, and it's like 1 sentence long. But then then they go off and just use this supposed threat of China to like all of a sudden take away your rights to browse the internet freely, or even transact in a currency that the government might not approve of, or even use a VPN to go on a website that they find forbidden. They could put you in jail for 20 years. I mean, people who look at child porn get lighter sentences than that. This episode is brought to you by Balcones Roofing and Remodeling. Have you been leaving your house outside again? Texas weather can wreak havoc on your home, especially your roof. And if you haven't had it inspected lately, chances are that outside elements could be making their way inside. Trust Balcones Roofing and Remodeling to perform a thorough roof inspection and offer long-lasting solutions. They are the only 5-star rated roofer in Austin who specialize in installing the impact-resistant F-Wave Revia and back all roof replacements with a $20,000 guarantee. To schedule a roof inspection, call 512-937-8805 or visit balconesroofsaustin.com. This episode is brought to you by 512 Boutique Events. 512 Boutique Events services all catering and staffing needs to any event in Austin and the surrounding areas. Anything from weddings to corporate events to festivals. They are even equipped to provide bar services. Visit their website today at www.512boutiqueevents.com for contact information. Calendar fills up quickly, so be sure to get your event booked today.
That's troubling. And we see it oftentimes on these, what we call maybe like, I mean, obviously there's a victim in crimes, but the idea of victimless crimes is amazing how, people who have been violent with others do less time in jail than somebody that hasn't hurt anyone else. It's troubling.
It is very troubling. I mean, they don't jail people for smoking weed anymore, right? Which is good.
There's some places, and still that guy that did time and like lost his job, and then his kids are out, or the guy divorced, his kids are on child support now or welfare, and the guy that literally robs someone does less time. It doesn't make any sense. It shows where our values are at.
Well, yeah, and I mean, lack of sound money, currency devaluation literally goes hand with cultural degradation.
That's a good point. Solid. I mean, I think all of our great revolutions, or good or bad revolutions, are economic. I mean, why else did Texas join the Union? We had too much freaking debt. We had to solve the rest. It's always really about putting food at the table, or what's motivating people's money at the end of the day.
They clipped coins the last couple hundred years of the Roman Empire. They were clipping coins, and the currency got devalued, and all people did was just go to gladiator shows and like party and drink, and you had all like a lot of the a lot of the tranny stuff and like the drag queens and like some of the like crazy out there like degenerate like stuff that you're seeing right now. Like you saw that on a slightly smaller scale in Rome during the fall of the Roman Empire.
Yes, the debauchery, oddly enough, seems to go ahead of the fall of nations, of countries, for sure.
And I'm not saying that you need to be like a religious zealot to combat that and all that, but you can clearly tell when things have when there has been a tipping point where it's not balanced, right? Like, I don't know, maybe like 20 years ago, like, hey, you can go clubbing, you can go to a bar, you can like, sleep with a few girls before you marry somebody. And there was a balance, and eventually you settled down and you became a grown-up. But now it's like, now you're taking 5-year-olds to drag shows where like drag queens are twerking with no clothes on next to pretty much infants. Like, it's got, like, the tipping point just kind of boiled over a little bit, right?
It's a weird
like,
groomer agenda. And you said, like, you don't have to be a religious zealot, but I do think the purpose was that you would be a moral person. I think that comes with this idea of morality. As you see your fellow man as another human being, they shouldn't be hit. They shouldn't have their stuff taken from them. You oppose and recognize that taxation is theft, that all laws are enforced to the end of a gun, that the gun comes with it. Sometimes they even shoot your dog, right, if you're messing with the ATF and other things.
Yes.
It's always odd. But that there's a purpose of this moral concept that you respect people's property, and taking their property without, due course of law is a problem. Injuring other people, it all really comes back to this property and how you view your fellow man. And we see that degraded society. We're kind of seeing what we're seeing, as opposed to I respect this person, so I don't want to take their stuff. I don't think it's okay to vote for things that allow the government to take their stuff either. I think it's really connected with how do you view people. And I think a lot of that does come from morality, because I believe in our nature, we're really selfish and we want to take from people and want to screw them over. And that's why these principles, Judeo-Christian principles of humanity and taking care of people, they tend to prevent those things.
They do, and they also make you happier by giving you a foundation to build on something. But a lot of this has to do with having good, sound money. When you have a society with sound money, people are a lot more law-abiding. They have better values because there's a motivation to adhere to those values. Like, if I have money that appreciates in value by me doing nothing, I'm more likely to save that money, right? I'm more likely to want to work hard because I know that the harder I work, the more I accumulate, the more I save, the better my life will be. If you live in a society where your currency depreciates by 10% every year, why would you want to bust your ass and run around on a proverbial hamster wheel to have a lower and lower and lower standard of
I need
living?
to spend that money now because it's going to lose. It's not going to be what it is tomorrow.
Exactly, and then you have a society that's based on instant gratification, and when everybody lives according to instant gratification, it's harder to find a quality person to actually settle down with, because the more you engage in like that type of behavior, if you do it too much, eventually like you get that energy. You know what I mean? So it's just it just becomes impossible to have like a personal foundation where you can actually build a functioning and productive, forward-moving society.
Right on. Well, I'd say the foundation of society is the family, and you were getting to the point that it's making it difficult for you to create that family structure, the person to settle down with.
Well, yeah. I mean, that modern feminism kind of came about at the same time that we went off gold. Not to go down that rabbit hole.
I'm going to put on like the hat real quick, but it's interesting. Yes, a correlation, or that's fascinating.
And listen, I'm not saying that women shouldn't have rights and that women shouldn't vote and that women shouldn't work or anything like that, right?
What's sad is that you actually had to give that caveat real quick, because someone's going to put words in your mouth and say that you're a bad person.
Someone is going to put words in 1,000%, and that's why it's important to explain that, because I really don't think that, like, my girlfriend makes more money than me, and I think that's great.
Yeah.
Right? And I fully support that, but the normalization of women working and women going into offices and women doing the same thing that men did happened right when we went off of gold, because once you no longer have sound money, you're no longer going to be able to support a family on a two-parent household. I mean, on a single income household. Yeah. That's just math. Like you're not going to be able to do that. You're also not going to be able to eat as well and have a nutritionally dense diet when inflation continuously destroys your currency. Another fun fact, they changed the food pyramid guidelines around the time that Bretton Woods happened.
Really?
Yeah, they started talking about cholesterol and eggs. Like they all of these fiat scientists and stuff started talking about how like grains were really good for you, and like eggs gave you cholesterol, and like certain like nutritionally dense foods like that. They tried to make them bad so that you wouldn't eat as much, so you could eat the cheaply produced industrial sludge that they're making. And now they're trying to normalize eating bugs when like the fiat system's like literally about to collapse.
Dude, wait, you mean the government interferes with our food supply?
I know, what a shocker. What a shocker.
Have you understood that? It's amazing when I go to the grocery store, and right, like I'm the chair of the Agriculture and Livestock Committee, and when I let's say like I'm at the grocery store and I see this vegetable, I'm like, there's no one ever buys that thing. How is that on the shelf, and how are they making money? We know how they're making money. It's their money that they're giving people tax dollars, right?
Yeah.
To even have these things there. And eventually that bottom has to fall out, that it's not because of need or demand. We look like we're this bountiful country, but are they really on the shelves because the market's there, or is it some fake thing that eventually this bubble's going to pop? It's all going to come fall into the ground.
Well, it's going to pop, and now they have these BTFP programs where the government can just continually inject they can just continue to inject liquidity into whatever system they find that's about to collapse that they want to keep propping up. And so eventually what that does is it'll just keep creating hyperinflation.
Which is the tax.
Which is the tax on everybody's lifestyle. Yeah. Unless you own an inflation-proof asset over time. Which is why it's really important to, like, solidify the state of Texas as a haven for Bitcoin and that type of stuff, because if you're not owning something like this and if you're not using better money, you're going to see the cultural degeneracy that a lot of conservatives all complain about, which I understand. I mean, I go to council meetings and pretend to be a drag queen. You know, like, I get it. But that has to do with the fact that that our currency is devaluing at an insane pace. And if you don't stop this, and if you don't start getting people on board to using better money, and you don't encourage this, and you don't, like, facilitate this now while we still have a chance, while there's still a window to do this, it's not going to be good for a lot of people.
Yeah. The real question, is there still a window?
I don't know.
Can't even turn around. I think we wouldn't be here as eternal optimists trying to do so.
I'm pretty optimistic on humans.
We got to keep going. Yeah,
well, during the Revolutionary War, we had a big inflation problem, too, during the Revolutionary War. Did you know that?
No, tell me.
Yeah, we had a big inflation. I read a Twitter thread about this, that we had a big inflation problem, like, during the Revolutionary War. And it almost, like, caused the colonies to give up. And what happened was after the revolution, they basically just like, the ratio of dollars to silver, like, it just went to nothing, right? Like, dollars became worth nothing in silver, and, you know, and, like, a small amount of silver can get you a ton of dollars, and, like, you know, dollars, like, the exchange rate for dollars and silvers was, like, really low.
Wow.
And what they did was they eventually just said, hey, turn on your dollars and we're going to give you silver, and you use silver to go and transact and start doing stuff. And it helped stabilize how the country was. So, I mean, I think that, will we be able to do this nationally? No, but I think we're hitting a tipping point where I think that the U.S. government might just be too big anyway, and states are probably going to have more autonomy. And I think that if you do this at a state level or at a county level, then you know, the United States is not going to be a prosperous country as a whole, but there are going to be sections of the United States that can be really prosperous if they do these things, and we have an opportunity to do these things here, and we should do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'm with you on letting the states go for it, because I don't know how we can all force D.C. to go back to being this 10 square mile section out, you know, near Virginia.
No, you
right?
can't.
That was what it was supposed to be.
You
and now
can't.
It's not.
And you shouldn't do the Marjorie Green national divorce with red and blue states. I don't think that's good either, but I think that, like, if you started decentralizing the government based on location, you could kind of, I think, mitigate some of the damage that could potentially come down in the next 10 years. Do it while keeping people's freedoms, and also doing it, you know, in a way where people can go where they feel as though their tribes are.
All right. It's thoughtful.
Does that make sense?
I prefer it over the national divorce thing. I mean, the national divorce discussions and issues, again, I think laws are enforced by force, which means violence and guns, and I don't see how that's ever done without a gunshot, without death, and I'm not cool with that, man.
I don't want that either. No, it's insane. Like, I think that there's a peaceful way to solve a lot of these problems. I think the best way to do it is through communication and doing it honestly. With this Restrict Act stuff, I've been going to Democrats more than I've been going to Republicans to talk about it, honestly.
All right. How's that going?
So far, they've been very polite, and they've listened to me. But it's also very early to say. When I've noticed, though, when I've gone to the Republican office, when I went to you were giving me actual advice as to what to do going forward. And I went to Schaefer's office and Vaust's. They weren't there, but I sent them emails. One of them, Matt Schaefer's chief of staff, was the wrong email, so I got to actually.
We'll have to fix that, man. But yeah, maybe the Freedom Caucus will discuss on that. Topic. Yeah.
Nobody was, like, giving me advice about what to do. They were like, "Hey, we'll just come back. We appreciate you looking at this. Can you send us the bill?"
Yeah.
They, you know, it felt like it was lip service, but nobody's been hostile or one person was. We're not going to go into any names yet because we're going to try to see what happens.
There you go.
But everyone that we've talked to has been pretty cool. A couple of them were like, "Hey, get your cameras out of the office.
Oh.
You know, you're not allowed to film here." And I'm like, "Okay, no worries. That's fine, ma'am. That's cool."
Yeah.
They're right.
Let them do their thing.
Technically. But we'll see. I think ultimately the purpose of this is to raise awareness to that. This is like the biggest threat to our democracy in our country.
Here's one way I pitch it when I'm talking to people that have a differing viewpoint than I do, which is like, sometimes we'll see things move, and some of my friends will look at these bills and go, look, I know that sounds like it's good and it benefits, it goes against my political opponents, but always remember, when we empower the government with something, the next administration may then use it against you. And the idea that, like, all right, maybe the Restrict Act looks like it's going to go after, offensive speech or whatever, so therefore it probably, without saying the quiet part out loud, it's to target conservatives or,
Briscoe,
these people.
Exactly what I say.
But then it turns around, then it's on the other foot, or the other person's in power and they're going after you, right? You always want to, anytime you think you're going after your political opponents, always remember that power can then come after you.
Yeah,
That's my point.
That's exactly what I tell them. And I've been saying, well, hey, do you want Ron DeSantis or Donald Trump to have the power to decide what's threatening or not? Mm-hmm. So I went to Tallarico's office and said that to him, and I went to Erin Zwiener's office and talked about that. I talked with her. Actually, she was really cool. Yeah. Not her, but her staffers were really receptive to how I was concerned.
Yeah, I'm with you, dude. I mean, the decisions, right? The police branch, the executive branch should be just enforcing laws and not making decisions. You're starting to commingle powers when you've got decision makers into a single person. That's tyranny.
That is tyranny, and also that's another reason why the defund the police stuff was so dangerous, because anybody with half a brain knows that the next step is going to be lawlessness, and then they have to replace it with a bigger bureaucratic agency to police people, and that's never good.
You couldn't be more right. I mean, that's why we're seeing DPS now having to police the streets of Austin.
Yeah, it's a huge problem.
Not that it's a bad thing, but we have to make up for it. This place is wild, man.
It's pretty wild.
In January, my wife, we're at Walgreens by the house here in Austin, and they have the door locked. And she goes and knocks, and they open the door and let her in, and they lock it behind her. And she's like, "What's going on?" Like, "We're being robbed." Like, why did you let her in? Like, what on earth?
What happened? Your wife
she
got
knocks.
robbed?
No. The Walgreens is being robbed.
Oh.
Where, like, one of the grabs where they smash everything, grab stuff. It was by a person without a home.
Yeah.
They didn't appear to be armed, but they let her in during it, and then locked the door behind her, trying to keep the guy in. But the odds that they let her in, not that was odd. But of course they call the cops. They never show up.
No.
You know what I mean? They never get the guy, and all this stuff's lost, and you can see why things are closing and. Things are locked up now that you can't even buy. You have to go ask permission. It's all because of this massive theft and the lack of enforcement of our laws. And we don't have legal, the enforcement of your laws, and we have no laws, and there's no society.
No, it's pretty crazy. We only have a few minutes left to wrap up, and I know you got stuff to do. We talked about the Restrict Act. What are the steps that you could take? Because I know it's a federal issue.
Yeah.
So there's not much you could do at the state level, but what could you do as a state representative to raise awareness to this so that there becomes a greater sense of urgency in opposing this, because this is bipartisan, and there should be bipartisan opposition.
Well, I continue to use, I guess, my platform and the audience to speak on it, and I have, and then maybe a collective voice of other members joining in on it. But really, at the end of the day, the power, I believe, is in the people, and the congressmen are more likely to listen to the angry voters or the voice of those voters than they are to us. And so,
provided
really,
we have honest elections.
That is one, but the people need to be speaking out on this and telling their congressmen what they want, and
you
that's the way
said
to stop
something about
it.
the Freedom Caucus.
Mm-hmm.
What could the Freedom Caucus do to help put pressure on this?
Look, I mean, I can pitch it and potentially maybe send a letter to the congressional delegation opposing the Restrict Act. That's one way, but again, I'm telling you right now, the collective voice of the people is still more powerful than us. And so, while I plan on bringing that to the caucus, it's really the folks, the voters, that they're more concerned with. And you've got to voice your opinion, tell your congressmen and others that you oppose the Restrict Act.
Yeah, and I think it's also a good thing to get votes too. If you're a representative speaking out against this, you will get bipartisan votes anyway.
Right on.
You will definitely get bipartisan votes. So yeah, I went to some other members that you recommended and spoke to them, and I'm going to continue following up when I get back from Michigan in about 2 weeks. So yeah, that's definitely going to be something that I'm going to continue doing. I think that you have people like Matt Rinaldi doesn't want that to happen. We have a really good GOP chair, and GOP chairs communicate with other GOP chairs, so there should be some kind of a method of communication, because every state has a Freedom Caucus.
I mean, look, it'd be really cool if all the GOP chairs of the states in the country kind of came together as a collective letter, sending it to the GOP delegation in Congress. I mean, there's an idea.
That's a great idea.
Give them a roll. So
that's a great idea. All right, Briscoe, how do we get a hold of you?
Just find me. It's at Briscoe Cain. You can find me on Twitter or anyone else. You may not find other Briscoe Cains, even though my father and son have the same name, but it's Briscoe Cain, man.
Excellent. All right, you got an Instagram?
I don't use it too much, dude. I'm supposed to, but it's not too much. Primarily on Twitter.
You're a big Twitter person.
Yes.
You were the first state rep to share my tweets.
Oh man. Well.
And Brian Slayton was the first one to do a podcast with me.
Yeah, he beat me to it, man. Glad you did it.
But yeah, that's some wild stuff. We could maybe talk about that in the bonus footage if you want.
On the what?
We have a little bonus footage if you want to do some bonus stuff.
Discuss what?
Slate and all that. If you want, it doesn't matter.
I'm allowing for investigations to go forward right now, man. Yeah, there are reasons, and I think I don't want to mess anything up. I want to make sure justice is done.
Hey, my attitude is this: as long as you vote correctly and as long as you care about, as long as you do what you're elected to do, then, as long as you don't, as long as you don't fuck a kid or rape somebody, then it's not the end of the world. But at the same time, you also didn't show up to vote on like the budget stuff that you proposed, and that's a problem.
There are a lot of issues, and that's why I was one of the first. I was actually the first to publicly call for his resignation. We'll get into the details some other time.
Let's get into details some other time. All right, Briscoe, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it.
You got it.
All right.
Thank you, Alex.